This time, as part of my series on anime-based games, I'm looking at one of the best known NDS titles to have never had a release in the West, Jump Ultimate Stars. Drawing on the huge back catalogue of different manga properties that have originated in the Shonen Jump magazine, the game is a tournament fighter in much the same vein as Super Smash Bros. The first thing that hit me as soon as I started playing this game was just how many of the titles that have gone on to great fame in the West have originated from Shonen Jump. The likes of Naruto and Dragon Ball are instantly recognisable, but the game also features no shortage of series that are much less well known outside of Japan. I wouldn't even attempt to go through them all, but the number of characters making an appearance here is nothing short of staggering. Unsurprisingly, they're not all playable, but there's more than enough diversity in the main characters to keep all but the most picky fans happy. Unfortunately, the first time I clapped eyes on the in-game graphics, I was pretty disappointed. Before playing Ultimate Stars, the only beat-em up I really played on the DS was Bleach. And if you're not familiar with that one, it's a very pretty looking game. This, by comparison, is a bit of a letdown. Understandably, the game is designed in a fairly tongue-in-cheek manner, so the character sprites are generally quite short and squat looking. But my main gripe with these, however, is that quite a few of them don't really seem to capture the appearance of their manga counterparts. Luffy, for example, who you start the game with, is instantly recognisable, but at the same time he just doesn't look quite right somehow. I can't quite put my finger on why, but he just seems a bit puny looking, I suppose. And I'd also extend this complaint to the special moves. Again, there are obvious limits in terms of technical capability and screen size, but I can't help feeling that a lot of the specials just don't look that impressive. Such initial misgivings aren't helped by the pace of the game at the beginning either. The uninspiring tutorial in the adventure mode is not desperately lengthy, but it can't be skipped, and all the other modes of play are locked until you finish it. Which is fair enough if you're new to the series, but it's kinda annoying if you've played this game's predecessor, Jump Superstars, and you have a fairly good idea of how everything works already. But this really is just the first impression, however. Once you've passed the opening stages and gotten into the game properly, you'll find it grows on you very quickly. Even the graphics have their good points once you get used to them. Some of the character sprites are actually pretty good. I mean, Nami here, for instance, seems very close to our original look. The main adventure section is broken down into worlds based on each series. Each of them has several missions to complete that will let you unlock new characters and other little bonus extras, such as trivia about the manga series featured and these nice little intro movies that show you a few pages from the series in question. The game also supports multiplayer modes through download, link up and Wi-Fi options, although unfortunately I don't know anyone else who owns the game and I can't get my DS working online, so I can't really comment on that area. Gameplay wise, Ultimate Stars again feels very reminiscent of Smash Bros. Attacks for each of the playable characters are a bit limited, with 3-button input for weak, heavy and special attacks. I actually found the combat a little clumsy at first, particularly as repeatedly mashing the special attack button seems to be enough to clear some of the early objectives. But once you've tried a few of the characters and got the feel for it, it all flows along quite nicely. The game will generally reward you for putting a bit of thought into your attacks, and it never feels as if the computer is cheating you. It is a little bit on the simplistic side, I suppose, but that doesn't stop the game being a lot of fun to play once you get into it. If anything, the simple, fast-paced combat seems to suit the handheld format very well, and it's great to pick up and play for a few minutes when you're on the bus or whatever. Where the game really shines, however, is in the deck system that you use for selecting your characters. Rather than choosing characters directly from a menu, as with every other beat-em-up ever, the game will start you off with a small selection of comic panels or komas, which you arrange into slots on the bottom screen of the DS, thus forming your deck. Komas vary from the largest battle panels, which represent a playable character, through help komas for a smaller panel, which we'll call it a secondary character for a special attack, to the smallest support koma, which will grant a status boost to your battle characters. And in order to use them to their fullest potential, each coma must be powered up with tokens gathered from the main game, although you won't find out what each power-up actually does until after you've purchased it, so there's plenty of incentive to keep playing. This system gives Ultimate Stars an unexpected amount of tactical depth, as there are countless combinations of different characters that can be fielded. You can spend ages just fiddling about with the deck maker, figuring out which combination of characters suits your own playing style. You might find a combination early on that you're inclined to stick with, but many of the game's objectives will force you to use a computer-defined deck, so you could suddenly find a better character without even looking. The only downside to this heavy emphasis on the characters is that if you have no interest whatsoever in any of the Jump series, you might find yourself at a bit of a loss here. It certainly is possible to play Ultimate Stars with pre-made decks and ignore the customization side of things, but you'd be cutting out so much of what makes the game special that it might not keep you entertained for very long. In a way, it's a similar handicap to Smash Brothers. So much of the appeal is tied up in playing as the characters on offer that if you're not interested in them, you might be as well just to look elsewhere. And as you've probably noticed by now, I'm actually running a patched version of the game with a fan-made English translation. While the game is still readily available from import dealers, patching is a bit of a necessity if you want to play Ultimate Stars in English, purely because of the complex licensing issues that would need to be resolved before the game could ever have a Western release. It's by no means impossible to play the game untranslated, as there are a number of very good player's guides available, but this patch from Defufu and Yunt is of an excellent standard, and I would recommend anyone with the means of running the game in this form to do so. Most importantly though, I'll sum up by saying that Jump Ultimate Stars is a very solid and playable beat 'em up, with more than enough content in it to last you a long time. Whilst the combat isn't as deep and technically involved as a Capcom or an SNK fighter, you'd basically have to be allergic to fun not to find something to your liking here. The final score is 7 out of 10.